The mystery was, how were the Zulus able to outmaneuver the British and get to close-quarter combat at all? The answer may lie with the Zulu Inyangas. These traditional medicine men are the custodians of Zulu oral history. One of them who fought that day handed down tales of the battle to his grandson, Credo Mutua.
The war machine of the Zulu nation was backed up by a highly sophisticated medical corps, a corps of healers and traditional surgeons whose purpose was to heal all kinds of wounds that an army could sustain in battle. If you look at the skull here, you might say this is a black magic object. No, this is a thing of education where a healer of high caliber was taught what to do when he met various kinds of head injury on a warrior or an ordinary person. For example, if a warrior had been hit on the head with a heavy battle club, I had to make a hole not far from the injury. Then the evil spirit, or rather the pressure in the skull, would make a sound like a cold drink bottle being opened. It would go psh. And what will happen is that the warrior will leave.
While the British had their captains and generals, the Zulus had their medicine men, and they weren't there just to dress wounds. At Isandlwana, they took their place behind the Zulu commanders on the Notu Ridge, above the British camp. That day, it was their task to unify the 20,000 warriors into an indestructible fighting force.
And they were just in front of their warriors, their Zulu Indunas, about 2 meters. They were sitting facing Isandlwana mountain. The Zulus behind them were just singing their song. And that song got louder and louder until it reached like a crescendo when a single war cry was heard. Usutu! Now the Zulus, as they sang, they pick up their knees, drive their foot onto the ground. They're now singing Ji, Ji, wrangling their assegai against their shields. Ji, 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 Ji. 10,000 Zulu warriors singing just like that, making a loud noise.
The Zulu commander had good reason to be confident.
As he saw his warriors in their attack position, he looked back and laughed to his men. And he stood on his feet. He drove his feet onto the ground and he bellowed, "Portuguesa! Kill them!"
Their unity sprung from a series of war chants, dances and mysterious rituals still performed on occasion by the medicine men, though rarely for the public. Ian Knight has been invited to witness one of these pre-battle ceremonies. He is certain that if there is a secret to the Zulus' victory at Isandlwana, he will find it here.
The Zulus were certainly incredibly focused upon their enemy. They went through a whole series of rituals before they set off on campaign, which effectively cut them off from everyday civilian life. Once you'd undergone these rituals, your whole psychological intent was to go out and kill the enemy. And they lived in this sort of universe of battle with everything focused upon the destruction of the invader until they'd actually gone out there and fought them, with the result that this was unleashed in a terrific sort of frenzy of violence, if you like, at the height of the battle itself.
The effect of these rituals is to unify the troops with a common sense of purpose.
had to be bound together, friend to friend, group to group. You had to act as one. In battle, you had to look after each other. Now, people, when acting in a ritual, fuse together and become one critical mass facing an enemy. It's as simple as that.
Using the psychology of ritual was only the first stage in the preparation of the warrior by the medicine man. British war reporters who spoke to warriors recorded how they had smashed the British camp with an extraordinary ferocity, how they thought they were impervious to bullets, and how they were in an almost unnatural mental state.
They picture themselves as being in a very intense state of mind. They say that they're seeing nothing but red. They're almost consumed with a type of bloodlust. They talk about seeing apes dressed in British uniforms manning the British positions, and they seem to suggest that the British had been able to control nature and direct it against them, because they say they saw strange birds coming to attack them from the British positions. And one is left to ponder exactly what these accounts are referring to.
One physical clue may show the Zulus had a secret weapon.
This is one of the more intriguing and mysterious artifacts. This is actually a horn that has been used as a container for Zulu traditional medicine, which is variously known as muti or interlezi medicines when it's got a military association. And this would have been used to contain various substances which the warrior would carry about him. It would be on a thong carried round his neck like that.
Once the warriors were bound into a single force, the medicine man would build on his work, not just psychologically, but chemically. War medicines, or muti, would be handed out in elaborate pre-battle ceremonies like this. Teas would be drunk, snuffs taken, and potions sprayed on the warriors designed to make them feel invincible. Ian Knight and Tony Pollard were about to be let into the secret world of the medicine man.
When Ian Younger called me out, he gave me some of this muti, which he assures me is the actual ritual medicine that was given to warriors when they prepared them for war. I had to give him some money, and in turn I was given this. I'm told I must mix it with water and I must sprinkle it on myself and on the ground if I want to prepare myself and make myself as brave as a lion in battle. You can see here that it's an interesting mixture of herbs, and included in here as well is some of the snuff that was given to warriors to take actually during battle from their gourds. There's just a little bit of very finely ground powder in there, so it'll be interesting to find out too exactly what's inside that.
We brought the snuff to the laboratories at the University of London School for Pharmacy for chemical analysis.
The first thing we normally do there is have a look down the microscope to get a clue as to what there might be there. And when I looked down it did look suspiciously like cannabis, because cannabis is very distinctive, and tobacco as well.
Further tests confirm the snuff is cannabis. A series of solvents are next used in a chromatography test to split out two important compounds.
Cannabis contains a number of cannabinoids, and those are the major active ingredients of cannabis. The main ones are THC and CBD. THC is the one that gets you high, but it can induce a kind of anxiety or edginess. CBD is the one that's sort of more sedative and mellow kind of effect.
This was no common or garden variety. The levels of the stimulant ingredient, THC, or tetrahydrocannabinol, were extremely high. They show up on the chromatography plate as spots of pink.
What we found in this one is that the major spot was THC, and we couldn't find any evidence of any CBD.
The lack of sedative in the cannabis and such a high stimulant content made sense of what the medicine men say, that warriors on the day had unnaturally high energy levels.
The snuffs that we used in battle had the effect, whether actual or psychological, I don't know. They had the effect of concentrating your vision, making you very focused.
But Zulu accounts spoke not just of their focus in battle, but also an unnatural ferocity. The warriors claimed to see nothing but red. Cannabis couldn't be responsible for that. Could there have been something else in their arsenal of battle medicines to explain the speed and the savagery of their attack? Just how an army equipped with spears and shields could have orchestrated one of the greatest defeats of the Victorian era has mystified historians. The focus with which they attacked and the ferocity with which they slaughtered the British redcoats has never been totally understood. But the Zulus had a secret war chest of battle medicines, potions, powders, and snuffs. Some of the snuffs contained tobacco, others cannabis. But there was another, one far more potent than the rest, made from a powerful hallucinogenic mushroom.
This mushroom snuff was only used by warriors who intended not to return alive from the battlefield. We called it Inkowankowa ebomvu, the red mushroom. Let us say that you wanted to kill as many of the enemy as possible before they killed you. You took this snuff, and the snuff would have a strange effect of making your eyes sort of glazed, like a person already dying. And the enemy coming towards you will think that you are already dying, looking at your eyes. But you are very, very alert, lost in a world of glorious illusion. And you will stand up and stab the enemy, 2 or 3 of them before you fall.
The name of the mushroom must be safeguarded. At high doses, it is toxic, and the risks in taking it unsupervised would be too great. At low doses, it is safe to test. We have chosen judo as a modern form of hand-to-hand combat. Christian and Craig, 2 evenly matched players, have agreed to participate in a pharmacological trial of the mushroom under the supervision of toxicologist Professor John Henry. He is well aware of the hallucinatory properties of the mushroom.
The hallucinatory experiences that the Zulus had are very much in keeping with this kind of mushroom. People could see colors different, they could see shapes different, their perception could all be changed.
At this stage, what the effect of the mushroom would be in a combat situation is a matter of speculation.
The main active ingredient is muscimol. This is a substance that can produce a kind of detachment, lack of anxiety, lack of fear. These effects sound very like the kind of effects that one would want in a Zulu battle. One wants to be able to continue them over several hours. One wants to be able to be detached from all the things that are going on around. The bloodshed, the fact that you might be losing, but you still persist, you still keep fighting. You're not influenced by the general feel of the battle. You just go ahead and do your bit. And when people persevere like that, they're often on the winning side.
Just pop that on your finger.
Christian and Craig are first subjected to a number of physiological tests. Next, psychometric tests are conducted to assess their mood, their mental acuity, and their responsiveness to a series of visual cues. The mushroom is then given to only one participant, Christian. Craig is unaware that he is given a placebo. Within an hour, the power of the mushroom takes hold.
Start from now.
In the next bout, the physical effects are startling.
We go into the bout, and Christian's like a tiger. He just rocketed into Craig, and it was amazing. He's more disinhibited, more aggressive, more ferocious.
I felt a lot more coordinated.
You felt what?
A lot more coordinated.
More coordinated.
Yeah.
Great. You okay?
Yeah, I actually felt a lot harder, come to think of it.
What did you feel?
I feel Christian definitely did feel a bit sharper.
You say he felt sharper, and you think you felt a bit sharper.
I had more spring in my legs.
Christian's pulse rate has dramatically increased after taking the mushroom. But surprisingly, psychometric tests reveal his mental reaction times have significantly decreased. Professor Henry thinks he may have worked out why.
He just overrides it by coming out from his corner with all the... Muscimol is known to give you increased muscle tension. He certainly seemed to have more strength. There's no doubt about it. He just went for him. He flew at him. It took Craig by surprise, actually.
War medicines may have made the Zulus feel stronger and less sensitive to pain. But they could not stop bullets. The Zulus had to have found a weakness that tipped the scales, allowing them to reach the British front line. There were reports from the time of the Martini-Henry rifle jamming, and specially commissioned ballistics tests were revealing that this may have been the cause of the British downfall.
You have to swing the breech open, which is cut out to accept the bullet. It's loaded by pushing your bullet into here, closing the breech, pulling the trigger, extracting the round. That is under perfect conditions now. We're not actually firing the gun in between shots, and we're not being attacked by other people.
But if the gun is fired time after time, the barrel of the rifle heats up. As it gets hotter, the breech can get clogged up with gunpowder, leaving the bullet jammed inside.
When the black powder burns, a lot of it is left behind as residue in the barrel. The drier and hotter it is, the harder this residue becomes, till you in fact end up with a coating inside the barrel, like icing on the cake. So all these highly machined precision fits are now fouled up solid by this cake of black powder.
There was another reason why the bullets could get jammed in the rifle. They were manufactured from a soft, pliable brass foil and were highly prone to damage.
I mean, we've got 5 cases here, and you can see here the amount of damage that they received just in handling. The case had been damaged by dropping on the ground or smashing ammunition boxes open. The case is distorted and would jam on the way in.
If the bullet got stuck in the barrel, there would only be one way to get it out.
The only tool a soldier had was his bayonet, which you'd have to remove from the front of a rifle and then use the point of it to try and pull or tear the cartridge case out.
A few seconds wasted by one gun jamming could be the weak link in the British firing line the Zulus were looking for.
All you can actually do with a rifle is like you see in the film, start swinging it. But if you've got 4 or 5 people armed with spears coming at you, you're in trouble, you know. I'd be tempted to throw it down and run away.
A simple test will show whether the Martini-Henry rifle could have jammed that day. The gun will be fired repeatedly. The temperature of the barrel will be taken at intervals to monitor the rise in heat, the factor most likely to cause the jamming of the gun.
It's 10, 11 degrees, so it's at room temperature.
The gun is then fired 12 times in quick succession. The temperature of the barrel begins to soar. With the heat of the barrel rising rapidly, after a total of 24 shots and only 3 minutes of firing, the gun jams.
We've got a jam. Okay, let's have a look. Let's take barrel temperature first of all, shall we? It's not gone up much over what it was before. It's about 45. 46, it is climbing, yeah. We've got 46 degrees there.
The gun would easily have reached temperatures of 46 degrees, enough for powder residue to cause a jam. It is statistically almost certain that in the intense heat of battle, with bullets being kicked from their boxes and soldiers fumbling to reload, that at least some guns would have jammed that day. But there is one final piece of evidence gathered by the archaeological team which will show just how critical a gun jam would be. The team has been searching for a long line of spent rifle cartridges. These cartridges fell at the feet of the soldiers as they fired, and therefore mark the exact location of the British front line. The history books have always said that the firing line extended from north to south, about 100 meters in front of the camp. The team have become convinced it's much further out and have begun to look at least another 100 meters away, beyond the wire fences that today border the battlefield.
And lo and behold, within 10 minutes of our first grid, we found our first Martini cartridge case this side of the fence. Now, one cartridge obviously does not a firing line make, but the fact that we've got a single cartridge beyond the fence, this side of the fence, means that the firing line is somewhere out there, because you wouldn't get a single cartridge case in front of the firing line.
This single cartridge is a crucial discovery. It shows the British commanders had set up their defences too far away from the camp, forcing their soldiers to defend a much wider area of land. The only way to cover that amount of territory would be to break with their strict training to fire in a shoulder-to-shoulder formation and adopt a far looser formation, with the soldiers spread out several yards apart.
Logic would suggest actually that that's a very vulnerable and overexposed position, and despite the fact that there are probably 3 or 4 yards between each men in order to be able to cover this whole stretch of ground, they're completely confident that the firepower that they can put down will be sufficient to stop the Zulus as they attack. Of course, it doesn't work out quite like that.
In such a widely spaced formation, if one soldier's gun jams, this weak link could be the vital window through which the Zulus could pour. It had all been anticipated.
You see, we had commandos too in olden days. We had special suicide warriors whose duty was to penetrate enemy lines and to get behind the enemy. This is what happened at Isandlwana, when a crack group of warriors went behind the English lines and were able to attack the English from behind.
Just how the British defences were smashed by the Zulus can now be understood.
These men are not standing shoulder to shoulder. There are yards, feet between them. It becomes very obvious that once that firing line is actually overrun, the battle is over very quickly. These men are moving back very fast. They're not firing that much in the way of ammunition, not because they don't have it, but they don't have the damn time to fire it. And as soon as that thin line is broken, that thin red line, if you like, to use the old cliche, the game was a bogey.
It's now clear how the British army were cut down to size at Isandlwana. The smoky darkness of the eclipse hampered the ability of the British soldiers to hit their targets, giving the Zulus crucial extra time to reach the British line. With the redcoats spread too thinly, the Zulus, buoyed by battle medicines, could take advantage of a limitation of the British Martini Henry rifle. But it could, on occasion, jam. It was the weak link needed for crack warriors to pour behind the enemy lines and finally engage in ferocious hand-to-hand combat.
Throughout the battle, the Zulus held the initiative on this battlefield. The Zulu command and control was excellent, Zulu intelligence was excellent, Zulu courage was excellent, and all of these factors combined to actually completely out-general and outmaneuver the British forces here, who are really outclassed almost from the moment that the battle begins.
The great irony is that Isandlwana would prove to be the Zulus' undoing. Britain could not countenance such a humiliating defeat. Thousands of reinforcements were sent to crush the Zulus forever, setting in place an era of subordination that has lasted until today.
War, once said my grandfather, is a lion upon whose back you fall never to get off again.
Details of next week's programme coming up, and the Channel 4 book More Secrets of the Dead is out now, priced $14.99. To order, call 0870 1234 344 or click on to channel4.com/shop. In a moment on 4, Gary Oldman's in Dreads and Christian Slater's in Trouble. Quentin Tarantino's True Romance, also starring Patricia Arquette and Dennis Hopper, is next.